Much of Fort Lauderdale has canals with a lot of houses that have their own private docks on there, and I was lucky enough to rent a dock in front of somebody's house. But the canal is so small it involves me backing all the way into about 3/4 of a mile down the canal to get there. And anyone who's ever backed up a sailboat, let alone a full keel boat, some of you people were very impressed when I showed this on social media. But I have a trick. Stick around and I'll show you how I did it. Hello and welcome, I'm Tim and this is SV Paquita. Come along every week as I get this island packet ready to hopefully someday cast off the lines for the last time. I come from a background of being a lifelong professional mariner, and I've had to make the adjustment from doing that to living life on the recreational side. We've just come back from Puerto Rico, and then we spent the summer up in the Gulf of Maine, and now we're going to take the ICW down to Florida and hopefully spend the winter in the Bahamas. So come along with us every week. I think you'll like it. All right, Courtney, I'm without you. Clutch ahead. Clutch ahead. Give me a little bit more. Okay, I'll stop. So, those of you that follow my other channel, Tim B at Sea, you might... Courtney, I've lost my bow thruster again. You may have recognized some of the commands. Come ahead. I would love to take credit for this genius idea, but it was actually my friend Courtney from Cape Ann Towing who told me to tie up my dinghy this way, and we have lines going fore and aft, on the dinghy, and we have it perpendicular to the stern or the transom of the sailboat, and we were able to back it in nice and slow. I had a bow thruster, but unfortunately the bow thruster at the time, I didn't realize I was having a problem with it, and it kept dropping out. But anyway, this is 3 weeks later, coming out. I came back from work and got on here, and because they have so many canals, I guess Fort Lauderdale and maybe other places, for all I know, I'm not aware of how it all works, but apparently there's city ordinances that say that you cannot spend the night on a boat in a canal. And I guess the reason why was people were like Airbnb-ing their boats, and they weren't being as responsible as they probably should have been as far as putting water into the canal, whether it be wastewater from taking a shower or maybe even worse. And so at any rate, one of the downsides of renting a private dock in a canal like this is not only is it that you have to back a boat all the way down it, but the other downside is that you can't stay on it. So this particular morning I had flown in from Puerto Rico and after work, and then got up here. My friend Ian, you guys might have remembered Ian. He sailed the boat with Runa and me and Rick down to Puerto Rico before. Ian had a layover, and he and I and Captain Zoe's from she's one of the captains on she's Courtney's sister and one of the captains of the Fort Lauderdale water taxi. So Zoe and Ian came for a ride with me, and we took off and we came down the New River. I've sped this up a little bit just so that it won't take all day. This is traditionally about an hour run. We've got 5 bridges to go through, and I might have this wrong, so I'm just trying to do this by memory. I think this is the Davy Bridge. You have to let me know in the comments if I get any of this wrong. Still learning the area. Being on the recreational side, I'm not paying as much attention to details as I might have when I'm on the professional side at work. At least that's how that's a story I'm going to stick with. But anyway, I'm constantly fascinated with the New River. One of the things I learned riding with Zoe when they do the water taxi, they give a little speech and tell you about the different houses that you go by and all that. But one of the things I learned from riding around with her is that the New River is not a dug river. It's actually natural, and that it follows some sort of fault line or something. That's why it zigzags and goes here and goes there, and it makes for definitely a very interesting ride. And as you can see, each house is nicer than the next that you pass by, and it was really something. Incidentally, for any of you guys that were wondering, this was right before Christmas, and this was about as good as the days got for the next week. This was when it got really, really cold, and Chrysalida and her oldest son and I all went to the Bahamas, and for the first week it blew 20, 25 the whole time. It was great sailing over there with that wind, but we were bundled up like crazy. It was so cold. But anyway, it was a little odd coming down the New River, seeing all these palm trees and still having it be quite chilly. But if you're wondering why I'm leaving it all, it was because of what I was saying before, was that because of the city ordinance, I'm not allowed to spend the night on the boat. So it was important that when I flew in, I'd pick up the boat and get it off the dock and get it down to an anchorage and anchor up. And at that point, that's where I had a week before Chrysalida and Desan, her son, showed up, where I started to do my big lithium conversion. So stick around. Hopefully I'll be putting some videos together of that. That involved removing 6 lead acid batteries that were showing their age, removing a 2 kW inverter charger, and putting in 3 300 amp hour lithium ion batteries, basically effectively giving me almost 3 times the storage or usable battery that I had before. And also putting in a 3 kW inverter charger, battery to battery or DC to DC charger, protection on my alternator, servo box that is supposed to, I'm still working on that. I'm having all kinds of trouble with that, having it communicate, but that's supposed to be able to, while I'm on the boat, you know, on the tugboat or wherever I am in the world, as long as I have internet access, I should be able to see everything that's going on in the boat, including the temperatures of the refrigerator and the temperature of the freezer. And if the freezer temperature gets up, if I ever get this to work, it's supposed to send me a text message. And I think down in the future I'll even have it so that if for some reason with the batteries got low, before that even would happen, it would automatically start the generator to charge them back up. So we're aiming for a stupid captain and smart boat, so that's what we're hoping. But anyway, as you can see, we're getting closer and closer into the city of Fort Lauderdale. Coming by, this is the water taxi headquarters over here, and I think over here is where I get held up waiting for the bridge. So I'm going on a super slow bell right now, and I had mentioned earlier that I was having, there goes the train right there, that train bridge is down, and we had to wait for it to move, I think 3 bridges. So anyway, I had mentioned earlier that I was having trouble with my bow thruster. It was an intermittent problem, and these intermittent electrical problems are the ones that drive me the craziest. You know, you try to have somebody look at it, you tell your buddy about it, and you show it, and they work fine. Then when you need it, it doesn't work, and so you know, you rack your head up against the wall. You change something out, and then it works, and you think you're good, but then it goes back, and you had just changed the part without fixing the problem. Blah 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 blah. Well, anyway, this last time, right before I was going to go, and when we came back from the Bahamas and back all the way down the canal again, my friend Sean, he's the electrical engineer genius guy who's been helping me with my whole lithium conversion. I ran the problem by him, and he remotely, and with him doing a little bit of research online, check voltage on this wire, check the resistance on this wire, and then as long as we took the joystick out at the helm, I said, why don't I just bring it up to the bow thruster and pop it in right there? And I popped it in there, and it worked perfectly. So as soon as that happened, I realized there's somewhere a short in the wire harness that goes between the helm and the bow to the bow thruster. So that's something that I've got to do as soon as I get back. But sometimes doing these electrical problems, they're a real pain in the butt. But when you get them fixed, it's so rewarding when you know that you didn't just throw money at the problem, that you worked the problem, worked it out, and that you did it yourself. And Lord knows I know more about that system now than I certainly did before I had any problems with it. So that's a good thing. And as long as we're waiting for this bridge to open, I'll also tell you too, something that I haven't been real proud of, and I haven't mentioned it in any of my videos, but I want to kind of say that this has been like this since I bought the boat, but that could be wrong. I bought the boat and ran it for a while before I put my Victron battery monitor in with a new shunt and all that. Once I did that, I started to notice that at times my 170 amp alternator, which we have dialed down to 100 amps, that was what they had set it up for before, because the lead acid batteries weren't supposed to take any more than that at one shot, but now with the lithium ones we can increase that. But anyway, sometimes it would put out and sometimes it wouldn't. And it's funny, when you would get ready to go on a long trip, it would put out fine, and then when you go on a long trip, it wouldn't do that. And so coming down the ICW, where we motored most of the way, it would have been wonderful to have had an abundance of power, because the engine was running. That would have been great, but that didn't happen. And so after running all day long, there were times we get to the anchorage and I would actually have to start the generator just to charge the batteries up again, because we didn't get a lot of sun on that ride either. So that's it was very unfortunate. And that was one of those things where if there was a guy that I could pay, I would have paid him a crazy amount of money to fix the problem. I just wanted the problem fixed. And you couldn't really do that, because first of all, you got to schedule all this stuff. And then the other problem is that when somebody would come over to look at it, everything would work. So I couldn't figure it out. Well, anyway, after we got to Fort Lauderdale, I just sat down and just started hitting the internet real hard to figure out which wire was doing what, and what voltages and what resistances we should have at different places. I thought that the field was not being energized properly, and that was kind of true, but the field wasn't being energized, I found out later, because there's a voltage sense wire, and that was broken somewhere, where sometimes if the vibration was right, it would work and energize, then the field would get energized and the thing would put out. And then if it vibrated just the right way, then the voltage sense wire would drop out and the field would collapse, and that would be that. Anyway, the good news was I found it. I ran, instead of ripping apart the wiring harness, I just ran a separate wire, threw an inline fuse in, and the thing has been charging like a champ ever since. And another one of those things where it took a year and a half, almost 2 years of scratching my head and kind of being really bummed out about the whole thing, knowing that I have an awesome system that's not working as awesomely as it should. And then when I got it to work and realized I didn't pay anyone else, I did it myself, and now I know a lot more about that system. It's really a rewarding part of doing the awful work. When I say awful work, I'm talking about there's nothing on a sailboat. This is the case with almost every boat. But certainly on a sailboat, you have to do this boat yoga. You have to curl up into a pretzel just to try to get your multimeter leads on anything, because everything is it's just crammed in these awful spots. You have to be upside down and backwards and all this sort of stuff. So when you get it to work, it just feels so much better. But anyway, right now, as you can see, we're coming through the middle of, I think this is the 17th Street Bridge, I think we're coming up to here. Once again, correct me if I got that wrong. I might have that wrong. But anyway, yeah, Fort Lauderdale. It's beautiful. It's not exactly your quiet, secluded anchorage, but man, if you want to be where it's at, this is probably a good place to start. You can have a really nice boat and come here, and you're probably going to find a whole bunch of other boats that make your boat look very small and very cheap. But it's beautiful here, and I thought that if you haven't seen it, you should see it. And if you like this sort of thing, maybe you subscribe, maybe you give us a thumbs up. And thank you so much for following. Write me a comment. And if you get a chance to go to Fort Lauderdale, make sure you go up the New River. It's really, really cool. And stay out of all the commercial boats' ways. I had to say that or Courtney would yell at me. And any of you guys that go by Cape Ann towing boats, you'll see them. They're going up and down the river towing the great big mega yachts. You can yell over to them, "Hey, Tim said to say hi." I'm sure they'd love that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. You guys be safe, and as always, I'll see you guys on the one.